What a difference a day makes. 24 little hours. Wow, how true is that song? So yesterday she was bitterly cold and she persisted down for most of the day, and basically the whole day was just an untrammeled litany of cock-ups and disasters, and we stumbled from one to the next and crawled into bed in the evening thinking about moving into a retirement home, corner room somewhere. Woke up, sun's shining. Man, she was cold this morning. Good frost and foggy, but that's the fog's burnt off, the frost is burnt off. It's beautiful and sunny. The grass is growing. The cows are happy. I went round and had a look at all of yesterday's disasters, and none of them were quite so bad in the sunshine. Fixed a few more of them. Had quite a successful day, to be honest. It's 11 o'clock, so I've finished all the farm work. I'll shoot home. I've got an appointment this afternoon with a mate. We're going to go broach the prospect of a bit of a business plan with another outfit, and see if we can't make lemonade out of lemons. In the meantime, I'll probably go do a little bit of work on the shed, seeing as it's so beautiful and dry and sunny. And I'm generally just having a very good day. Horizontal members that go around the outside of the building are called girts, and where each girt meets a pole, it has to be notched into the pole like this little joint. Now, the joint has to be 15 mils deep, more or less. It has to be more or less 50 mils high, so that the girt will fit into it, and the end has to be at right angles to the girt. Now the problem is you've got to cut the notch before you've got the girt, and you've got to get all those dimensions correct. So what I've done is I've made myself a little jig. So I run 2 strings at the correct height, one on either side, and then I put my little jig on. And the cool thing about the jig, I don't know if this is the correct way to do it, but this is the way I've done it. The cool thing about my jig is it manages all of those different dimensions. What we do is we offer the jig up so that it's correct on both strings. So just give our strings a little ping to make sure that they're not stuck on the pole anywhere. Right, and then we work in one of these screws. Right. So, we worked in one of those screws. If you take a little bit of a look, right, so now I can throw a torpedo level on there. So I've got my height. If I look at my level, she's a little high at this end. So then I can offer a screw in down the bottom. But what that's done is it's introduced a little bit of a problem, because if you look at my jig, if you guys can see it, but the jig is not pointing at right angles to where the girt is, so I need to pull it around in that sort of angle. So this far end needs to move to the left as we look at it. The way I've dealt with that is what I've done is I've put 2 screws top and bottom on the jig. So if I tighten that screw a little and I loosen that screw, and then I can basically just jiggle her around. Maybe take a little bit off this one as well. And then I can sight down the jig. Boom, beautiful. She's pointing at the pole at the far end, which means it's at a perfect right angle to the line of the girt. The sun's shining and the temperature's up a little bit, and the bees are all back at work, happily doing what bees do. I've just shuffled the bulls through onto a new paddock, onto a new break. The plan with these guys tomorrow is we've got a vet coming at 9 AM, so we're not very far from the yard, so that's a good thing. It means that getting them in will be a piece of cake. We're going to run them into the yards, and tomorrow the older bulls, so I can't really pick them out, but there's a few 2-year-olds in this mob. The older bulls we're going to have tested, so the vet will take 2 vials of blood from each bull, so each individual bull will be tested. He'll take 2 vials of blood, and those 2 vials will test for BVD and IBR. So BVD is bovine viral diarrhea, which is essentially a relatively common sexually transmitted disease in cattle. I can't remember the incidence, but I think it's like 30 or 40% of beef breeding herds have it. It's easier to manage in dairy herds because you can test through milk sampling at herd testing time, whereas in beef herds, to pick it up you have to sample via blood. So obviously that adds to the cost and time. Herds that are free of it tend to try and keep free of it because it can be quite disastrous, and most herds would like to eradicate it. It creates sort of 2 main problems. The first is it creates fetal problems, so causes abortions, and those calves are born dead, slip early, so that obviously is a big production issue. In a beef herd you need calves alive on the ground, and in a dairy herd you need cows to go to full term so that they're productive, and also you need live calves on the ground there as well. The other problem that BVD causes is some calves, if they're infected in the uterus at certain times, they become what are called PIs, or persistently infected individuals, and those PIs then shed the virus and send it on to other animals. They also have a compromised immune system, so they're just poorly animals that don't grow well and don't do, and often pick up all sorts of bugs. So you spend a fortune trying to keep them alive until you realise that their underlying problem is that they're a PI, and then you end up having to slaughter them. So it's the PIs and the effect on reproductive health of cows that we want to control BVD for. Now IBR is another disease. I don't honestly know the incidence of it, but it's something that the dairy clients who are buying bulls want to know about their status. So IBR is infectious bovine rhinitis, and it's a respiratory disease. Don't quote me on this, but I think it's linked to a condition called catarrh, which is basically a persistent cough and snot and animals wasting away in the end. I'm not 100% certain on that, but that's what I believe. So we've got IBR and BVD. Now the third thing that the vet will do while he's here is he will give the bulls that he's testing a teeny little injection of tuberculin, which is like a product from the tuberculosis bacteria. So it's kind of a little bit like a vaccination, but what it's there to do is it only triggers an immune response in animals that have tuberculosis. So he injects this into a little fold of skin beside the tail, and animals that are infected with TB will react. Now there are a few false positives, but it's a pretty reliable test. So what they do is they give them this little jab, and comes back 3 days later, and he reads the test site by just rubbing his hand on it, and he's feeling for basically a little swelling developed. So any animal that's had a swelling developed, then we're called a reactor, and those reactors we then blood test to confirm or clear them. This little bull here he was rejected by his mother, so he's the smallest of the 2-year-olds. He was rejected by his mother, and I reared him at home. His name's Bubbles, so Bubbles come out pretty nicely. All right, so yeah, we've got the 3 tests: BVD, IBR, and tuberculosis.